Hare Krishna. So looks like I think everyone is busy today, but I'll still go ahead and continue with the recording. So if anybody gets a chance to see this later, I hope you get some benefit out of this recording. I will continue with the start. I'll start the second chapter. Hopefully, if everyone is busy, hopefully they can see see this session later on. Without a further ado, I'll quickly make it just a 30-minute recording, just introducing the second chapter. And maybe when everyone joins from next time onwards, then we can have a full-on session and in trying to understand what the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita is all about. So I'll start with prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Alright, I'll share my screen. So last week, even in the previous weeks, we have been looking at the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, right? So I'll quickly give a nutshell summary of the first chapter of what we looked at. The first chapter is called as Observing the Armies on the Battlefield of Kurukshetra, essentially, which establishes the scene of the Bhagavad Gita, why Bhagavad Gita took place, what's the background. So the background is established in the first chapter. The background is that there is a big war taking place, waging between the Pandavas and the Kauravas. On the side of Pandavas, we have Arjun, we have Yudhishthir, we have Bhim, we have Nakul, and we have Sahadev, the five brothers, five Pandavas, sons of Pandu. And on the other side of them, we have their uncles and their cousins, the Kauravas, headed by Duryodhana, Dushasana, and all the 98 brothers. They had 100 brothers and one sister. And they are the sons of Drithrastra, right? Drithrastra was born blind from birth, so he couldn't get the access to the kingdom, the throne, because it's given to the eldest brother, but since he was blind, he was rendered invalid. So the throne naturally went to the second son, that is Pandu. But Pandu was suffered from ill health. As a result, Pandu had to banish to the forests so that he could recover. So the throne ended up going back to Dhritarashtra, the blind king. And so the blind king oversaw the birth of his sons and the sons of his younger brother. They all played together because Pandu, the sons of the younger brother, their father died at a young age. So the sons of Pandu and the sons of Kauravas grew up together, but they naturally developed an enmity towards each other, primarily coming from the sides of Duryodhana, the eldest son of Dhritarashtra. And as a result of that enmity, multiple events happened, and over time, Duryodhana didn't want to share any part of the kingdom. Even the rightful kingdom that belonged to the Pandavas, Duryodhana didn't want to share. As a result of that, they tried various peacemaking avenues, solutions, but nothing worked out. And finally, in the end, what happened was that the two armies, the two sides were at loggerheads. And there was no way to settle except for war, to establish the righteous principles and essentially fight with them. And so the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita lays out this war, basically the war between good versus evil. As we know, the war between morality and immorality, the war between what is right versus what is wrong. So the right side is the Pandavas, the wrong or the sinful side is the Kauravas, and they are waging a war. So this Bhagavad Gita essentially is a reflection. This war is also a reflection on our lives. For instance, how our mind is constantly battling positive thoughts and negative thoughts, or how we are constantly in this ping pong game. One side, it goes to the one side and that goes to the other side. It's also called as Bhoga Tyaga mentality in the Shastras. In the Vedic scriptures, it is said that this is the mentality of Bhoga and Tyaga. That Bhoga means you enjoy something, Tyaga means then you renounce something. Then you enjoy it, then you renounce it. So this ping pong match, this constant tussle has been ongoing for a long time. So Bhagavad Gita essentially is also a commentary and a reflection on our own lives, how these things go. One of my favorite teachers, his name is Radhanath Swami. He's a legendary teacher. His story, his life, his autobiography is called as The Journey Home. How he traveled, hitchhiked from Europe to all the way to India at the age of 18, and how he became a monk and how he transformed lives of millions of people around the world. So in his book, he gives the example of two wolves. That there are these two wolves. One, the positive wolf, and then one, the negative wolf. And the positive one is always leading us to growth and progress, and the negative one is taking us down to lower natures and to lower modes and to lethargy and to laziness. And it's the opposite of growth. And these two wolves are always fighting in our minds, and one of them wins, or one of them keeps on winning. Sometimes the other one wins, sometimes the other one. But how do we know which one wins? It's the wolf that we feed. So if we choose to feed the negative wolf, then we start going downhill and things become difficult for us. Whereas if we start feeding the good wolf, then things become easier for us. So in a similar vein, we have the two sides fighting, and Arjuna doesn't know what to do. He knows that he has to fight for righteousness, for to establish dharma, to establish the truth. But at the same time, he is overcome by compassion for his cousins, for his family members. So that was essentially the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. We saw who is on whose side. So we saw a few names from both sides of the army, right? Then we saw that their strengths, what kind of phalanx, what kind of arrangement they had. And then they blew their conch shells. Krishna, Arjuna, they blew their conch shells. We also saw Yudhishthira and sons of the other great fighters there. And then after these conch shells, basically this marked the start of the war. And we saw that Arjuna asked Krishna that, please draw out my chariot between the two armies. I want to see who is there, who is here. I want to see who wants to fight with me, right? Let me see those who have come here to fight, wishing to please the evil-minded son of Drithrastra, right? The son of Drithrastra wanted chaos. He was envious of Arjuna. He had deep insecurities. And as a result, not only he wanted good for himself, but he wanted the bad for others, right? Sometimes we have people who say that I just want to compete and win the best thing for me. But then there are some evil-minded people. I want the best for myself, and I want absolute worst for them. And that's the mentality of the sons of Dhritarashtra. And that's the mentality. So there were some people wishing to please him, and others who were on the side of the Pandavas. So the chariots were drawn. Arjuna looked around, and Krishna said that, just behold, see all the Kurus here. And when Arjuna saw that, who did he see? He saw his fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, friends, and also his fathers-in-law and well-wishers. So he saw all of these people on both sides. As a result, what happened? Arjuna said that, Krishna, I cannot fight. Why? Because I'm seeing my body is quivering and my mouth is drying up, right? He gives his reasons now. And so we looked at 4 primary reasons why Arjuna didn't want to fight. The first reason was that Arjuna felt compassion for his friends and relatives. So from verse number 28 to 30 was the first reason. Right, my body is trembling, my hair is end. Seeing my friends here and relatives, I see only misfortune or Krishna, so I don't want to fight. Then from verse 31 to 35, these 5 verses, there was the second reason. What's the second reason? I don't see any enjoyment in it. Why do I have to? All the tasks that we perform in our life, all the actions that we undertake, is towards a particular goal in our life. We want some benefit, we want an outcome. So the outcome that Arjuna was seeing in this situation is, it's war, it's hell. I don't want to fight. I don't want to engage in this situation. So what happens? He says that, Krishna, I don't want to fight. I am not prepared to fight with them even in exchange for the 3 worlds. What to speak of this earth? There's no pleasure. So he says that I don't want to fight. Then he gives us third reason. So 36 to 38 is the third reason, these 3 verses. What's the third reason? Sin. We will get negative reactions, right? We know Newton's law. That for every action, Newton's third law of motion, there is equal and opposite reaction. So similarly, this similar law also applies to karma. That for every action that we perform, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So if you do good for others, good comes back to you. You do bad, bad comes back to you. Right? You take care of something, you study for an exam, you prepare, then of course, good things happen to you, right? There is a saying, I forgot who said it, but that person said that the more prepared I am, the more luck I seem to have. Or the more hard work I do, the more luck I seem to have, right? So it's proportional. Efforts lead to results. No effort leads to no result. So it's the law of karma. Action is equal to reaction, leads to equal and opposite reaction. So similarly, he was afraid that how could we enjoy by killing our own kinsmen? They are overtaken by greed, but I am not. Why should we, who can see the crime in destroying a family, engage in the acts of sin? So he was afraid of the sinful reactions that may come when you kill somebody. Then he gives his third reason. What's the third reason? Sorry, this is the third reason. I'm sorry. Right? The first reason was compassion, the second reason was no enjoyment, and the third reason is sin. And then finally, he gives his fourth reason. What's the fourth reason that he gives? He says that we'll destroy our family, right? When the dynasty is destroyed, then family tradition is vanquished. The family becomes involved in irreligion. Due to irreligion, women get degraded. Why? Because women are not protected. And what happens when women are not protected? Impious people, impious men take advantage of women, right? They don't take care of those women. Because of their seeming power, what they do is they make them commit atrocities or they abuse them. As a result, what happens? Unwanted progeny comes, right? Unplanned, unwanted progeny. And this progeny, because there's nobody to guide them, the women are under the control of abusers and the abusers have no right knowledge. Then this unwanted progeny, this progeny who cannot be guided properly, what do? This leads to corruption in the families, and offering for ancestors is stopped. Basically, moral principles and ethical principles are stopped. The family tradition is destroyed. As a result, community projects and welfare activities are devastated. When kids are not trained for community projects and welfare activities for the upkeepment of the society, for the benefit of society, then they fall down. It's destroyed. They dwell in hell. Basically, they create a hellish situation for themselves. So he says that from here to 43, Arjuna says that that's why I don't want to destroy our family tradition, so I don't want to fight. So he said that better if they kill me unarmed, unresisting, rather than me fighting. So Sanjaya, who is speaking to Drithrastra, says that having said that, Arjuna said that I don't want to fight Krishna. He cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down on the chariot, his mind overwhelmed with grief. Right? He didn't want to fight. And so with that, the second chapter begins, right? So I'm at 15-minute mark. Today's recording is going to be short because I don't want anybody to miss. I don't want to make it just a one-way monologue. I want to have conversations and discussions with everyone. So whenever you guys are available, we'll do a longer session. But I'll quickly give a brief summary of the first chapter. Maybe look at the first few verses for next 15 minutes. So the next chapters, the second chapter is called as Contents of the Gita Summarized. So if you could summarize the Bhagavad Gita in entire one chapter, then it would be this chapter. Right? It goes into a lot of things that are postulated and that are explained further in further chapters. But a summary is given here. So it starts from the previous situation. So Sanjaya said that Arjuna said that I don't want to fight, right? He's sitting. So what does Sanjaya do? Sanjaya said, Sanjaya uvacha tam tatha kripaya vishtam ashru purna kulaikshanam vishidantam idam vakyam uvacha madhusudanaha. Sanjaya uvacha. Sanjaya said, tam, unto Arjuna, tatha, thus, kripaya, by compassion, avishtam, overwhelmed, ashrupurna akula, full of tears, ikshanam, eyes, vishidantam, lamenting, idam, these, vakyam, words, uvacha, said, madhu sudanaha, the killer of Madhu. Right? So what does he say? Translation. Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudana, Krishna spoke the following words. So, Sanjaya is saying that, see, Arjuna is full of compassion, right? His mind is depressed. Why? Because he's seeing his family members. He doesn't want to fight with them. He sees no enjoyment. His eyes is full of tears. He's in such a precarious situation. Sometimes it's called as a catch-22 situation where you don't know what to do. You do something, You kill them, Arjuna is thinking, if I kill them, I get the kingdom, but then I lose my family members with whom I'll enjoy the kingdom, and I'll suffer from negative reactions. And if I lose it, then sin will overcome. The progeny would be destroyed because righteousness won't be established. So he doesn't know what to do. And we all face such situations in our life, where we don't know whether to go right or whether to go left. If these situations have not come yet, then they will come at some point in time, right? This world is full of challenges. It comes and it challenges us, and it's through these challenges that we grow. And that's why Arjuna listens to his philosopher friend Krishna, that Krishna, you have to explain and you have to help me understand. What do I do? So we look to a guru or look to a guide. So this also gives us an indication that a person, if things are going well for us, for somebody, then they don't seek out guru. But it's only when difficulties, when challenges arise, that's when we truly want to understand who we are and where we are coming from. So spirituality tells us, the Bhagavad Gita tells us that such situations are actually positive situations. It may seem a negative situation, but actually in such situations, we truly try to understand the deeper values of life, the deeper meaning of life. So Arjuna, being in this situation, he's trying to understand that. So that's why it is said that may all your challenges, may all the rocks that the world throws at you become stepping stones towards progress. So similarly, we have to see these challenging situations as and it may be hard or very difficult for us to see. That's why we turn to a guru or we turn to Shastra, the Vedic scriptures. That's the applicability of these scriptures and these texts, right? That they are applicable irrespective of day, age, time, place, or circumstances. Why? Because the message is timeless. Why? Because the message is spiritual in nature. And I previously said, right, that's a very famous quote also, that we cannot solve, by Albert Einstein, that we cannot solve a problem with the same level of consciousness that created the problem, right? So material problems cannot be solved by material understanding. They may be able to solve you may be able to solve them in some cases, but actually the best way to solve a material problem is through a spiritual solution. So we apply spiritual solutions to material problems in life, and that's what Bhagavad Gita is hinting towards. So we all face such situation. That's the essence here, essentially, that we sometimes get lament, or we lamentation. The word here for lamentation is vishidantam. This one, vishidantam, lamenting. We sometimes face such situations where we are lamenting, where we don't know what's right, what's good for us. And what happens in that situation? We turn to a guru, right? That's when guru appears in our life. So we really have to experience this situation for a guru to appear. Otherwise, the guru may appear, but we may not even recognize the guru in front of our eyes, actually. So it's through these situations in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the next study, the advanced, much more advanced than the Bhagavad Gita. The mother of Pandavas, Kunti, she is praying that, my Lord, let there be calamities. People prayed to the Supreme that please take away all my calamities and all the problems. But Kunti, on the other hand, is praying that please give me calamities. Why? Because when you give me calamities, I remember you. And when I remember you, then my calamities disappear. So I want more calamities so that I get more chances to remember you and engage in spiritual life and devotional life. So spiritual people see calamities and problems as opportunities rather than problems. And that's the vision that Bhagavad Gita wants us to have, is to see these challenges of our life as stepping stones and use guru, use these mentors, use these teachers so that we can implement. Arjuna got the best mentor in his life, that is Krishna, and we start seeing Krishna's instructions, right? Madhusudana, Krishna spoke. Also, one thing that we were previously looking at is the usage of these names, right? That there are various names, and Neelam has a list going on of the names that we have encountered so far. It's in our WhatsApp group. Now, here the name that is used is Madhusudana, right? Madhu Udana. That means, what does it mean? Madhudan Udanaha. That means somebody who kills Madhu. Who is Madhu? Madhu was a demon in the stories of Krishna, and Krishna killed him. So Arjuna is saying that, oh Madhusudana, oh killer of Madhu, just like you killed Madhu, kill my misunderstanding that has overcome in my discharge of duty. I want to discharge my duty of a king, of a Kshatriya. I want to protect my people, because he had his people, his soldiers and the people, their wives, they were protected by him. So I have to perform my duty, but there are problems in my discharge of my duty, so I don't know what to do. So therefore, Arjuna is referring to Krishna as Madhusudana, right? That's the point. And see, that's what Prabhupada also writes in the purport, that this conduct was not expected from him. Krishna, however, can dissipate the lamentation of the ignorant man. And for this purpose, the Bhagavad Gita was spoken. So see, the purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to dissipate the lamentation of the ignorant man. We all experience ignorance of some kind, because we are we get accustomed by the modes we live in. We get accustomed by the world we live in, and our vision gets narrow and narrow and narrow, and we cannot see the universality of our lives, of our purpose in life. And when we forget that purpose in life, what happens? We become ignorant, and because of that ignorance, lamentation arises. Sorry about that. And because of that ignorance, lamentation arises. And because of that lamentation, we suffer all kinds of suffering and problems. So therefore, the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita is to help us overcome this lamentation and this ignorance. A classic example is, why does ignorance arise, right? What does ignorance mean? Ignorance means that to believe something that is not true. That is ignorance, right? The biggest ignorance in the material world in this situation is for us to misidentify with material understanding. So for example, let's say you are invited to a cricket match or to a soccer match, let's say, right? So you enter and you are given a ticket, and that ticket has a number. Let's say it probably will have the seat number, it probably will have the number of the stand, the door that you enter through, etc., the dates. So that becomes the identification number, right? We know that it's a temporary identification. It's only meant to serve a purpose. That is, that ticket that is given to us is our only identification for the duration of the game. After the game is over, that identification doesn't mean anything, right? Similarly, when we appear in this world, we are given this identification, which is a temporary identification. It's given just for a purpose, for a specific purpose, and we have to understand that purpose. So for example, the human body, whether be it a male body or a female body, the culture that we grew up in, the race that we grew up in, all of these things, the nationality that we grew up in, these are temporary identifications. How do we know these are temporary? Because we see people giving them up at the end of their lives. They give up their identification and then they disappear, and we don't know what happens, right? So it's a temporary identity. It's just like a ticket that is handed to us at the start of a game, and then that ticket doesn't mean anything. Just like we give up that ticket, we throw away in the trash. This body, when it's useless, we throw it away and then we go somewhere else. So the entire point of Bhagavad Gita, so if we start identifying with the ticket number, let's say you watch a game and your ticket number 1234, and you take it as your identity. Oh, I am ticket 1234. This is my identity. This seat is my home. This is where I belong. But after the game ends and if you still hold on to that identity, what happens? You're thrown out, right? That identification. They say that the agents of the stadium, they come and they say that we will kick you out. You don't belong here. That's not your identity. It was your identity in a specific amount of time for a specific context, but it's not. So because if we attach ourselves to that temporary identity, we get into ignorance, because that's ignorance, and that, as a result, lamentation and suffering come. So similarly, the suffering and lamentation in this world comes because we identify with this temporary human body. We think I am this body. We think I am this, I am that. I'm Indian, I'm American, I'm Chinese. I am a man, I am a woman. I am of lower caste, I am of upper caste. I am a fan of this, I am a fan of that. And we put all of these identities and we start identifying with these identities. Ultimately what happens when we start identifying with these identities? We develop lamentation. Why? Because we don't want to give up these identities, but they are forcibly taken away. What do we do then, right? That's where ignorance and lamentation comes. And that's the point where Bhagavad Gita wants us to understand. It dissipates the lamentation of the ignorant man. And for this purpose, the Bhagavad Gita was sung by Krishna. So that's one of the core points, right? This chapter, Prabhupada further writes, instructs us in self-realization, right? Remember the very first session we talked about that the question of the ages is that has been surfaced and resurfaced after generation, from Aristotle to Plato to Rene Descartes, right? To modern day consciousness philosophers such as John Searle, Daniel Dennett. Who am I? Self-realization. What am I? Am I a machine? Am I a brain in a jar? What am I? Am I a conscious particle? Am I atoms? What am I? Or who am I? That age-old question has been asked, and Bhagavad Gita actually instructs us in that question by an analytical study of the material body and the spirit soul. So that's the second chapter. It gives us an analytical study, and as explained by the Supreme Authority, Lord Krishna, right? And this realization is possible when one works without attachment to fruitive results and is situated in the fixed conception of the real self. Now, what does that mean, right? That's a heavy, loaded statement. This realization is possible when one works without attachment to fruitive results and is situated in the fixed conception of the self, right? So we will see what these mean. What is attachment? What is fruitive results, right? A result which bears a fruit. What does it mean? And what is the fixed conception of the real self? That's what second chapter is about. So it really sets the tone now of the core of the message, that is self-realization. And that's one of the reasons why we are reading the Bhagavad Gita, right? Well, apart from understanding what's in the book, right? Apart from just curiosity, we also want to understand self-realization. And we want to learn and apply those messages. Why? Because these messages simplify life for us. We are able to find solutions to the most problematic and most troublesome problems of life. That's the reason why we need the Bhagavad Gita in our lives. So that's the core of it. Right? I'll just take one more verse for next 3 minutes, and then I'll conclude with this 30-minute session. We'll do more when everybody, or when a few of you joins, at least one person joins, so that at least there is some dialogue and so that nobody misses out. So verse number 2 from the second chapter. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kutastva Kashmalam Idam Vishame Samupasthitam Anarya Jushtam Aswargyam Akirti Karamarjuna. Synonyms: Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. The Supreme Personality of God had said, right? See, again, Krishna is referred to as the Supreme Personality. That means he is a person of Godhead. So that means there is variety of Godheads, but there is one Supreme Personality. Kutaha, where from? Twa, unto you. Kashmalam, dirtiness. Idam, this lamentation. Vishame, in this hour of crisis. Samupasthitam, arrived. Anarya, persons who do not know the value of life. Jushtam, practiced by Aswargayam, which does not lead to higher planets or higher positions. Akirti, infamy. Karam, the cause of Arjuna. Oh Arjuna. So what is Krishna saying? Oops. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets but to infamy. So the very first thing that Krishna expresses is surprise that, oh Arjuna, my dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? You are an educated man. You learn from the best of the best teachers. You understand the value of human life. You understand what is the purpose of human life, what is duty, what is non-duty, what is spirituality, what is non-spirituality. How come you have been overcome by this dirtiness, even this impurities of lamentation, of not knowing what to do? They lead not to higher planets but to infamy. An indecisive man, it leads to infamy, Arjuna. What you are trying to say? You are a Kshatriya, you are a king, you have to fight for your kingdom. We have tried all the ways that was possible. And now, when nothing remains, you have to stand for what is right. How can you turn your face away from establishing what is right to just express your compassion for somebody who is on the wrong side? You have to stand for what is right, Arjuna. You have to fight. It's your duty. So Krishna is explaining. So Krishna is expressing his surprise in one way. Right? This purport is actually quite interesting. So I would encourage, if you guys get a chance, then read this purport actually. Very interesting purport regarding what is the position of the Supreme. Who is Supreme, right? Here Krishna is called as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, people might say, right, why is Krishna called as Supreme? Some people say that in the Vedic scriptures, they think that Vishnu is the supreme or somebody else, or Shiva is the supreme. Today happens to be Shivratri also. But Krishna is referred as Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. What does that mean? So Prabhupada quotes various other verses from other scriptures, such as the Srimad Bhagavatam, Vadanti Tattva Vidas Tattvam, Yajnanam Advayam, Brahmeti Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti Shabdayate. That means if you want to understand the source of everything, you can understand him in 3 layers. What's the first layer or the first level? Brahman. Some people say that God is energy, right? God is energy. The universe is energetic. The universe is helping me. Well, that's a true conception, but that's not the complete conception. It's true, but it's not complete. So it is expressed as Brahman, all the impersonal light, all the impersonal effulgence, or the impersonal aspect of the universe, right? Today, when many people say the universe is helping me, the universe is benevolent, it's kind. Yes, it is, because it is a form of the complete divinity. But beyond that, there is another level called as Paramatma. You see, there are various yogis in the world. They meditate on the form of the Lord in their heart. They meditate on God. They say that God is everywhere, in every atom, in every single thing. And when they do advanced yoga to activate their kundalini, to activate their chakras, to activate the Brahmarandra, the topmost chakra, right? There are various chakras in the spiritual body, in the sense that it's a subtle energy points in the body. Right? There is the Anahata chakra, there is the Swadhisthana chakra, there is the Mooladhara chakra. The yogic practice talks about these chakras in the body, which are energy points like solar plexus. What do? When you activate all of them, when you're truly situated in a spiritual platform, you activate and you see the divinity in your own heart. Right? So that's also true, but it's not complete. And the final conception of the Supreme is Bhagavan. That means God as a person, understanding our relationship with God as a person, just like we have relationship with other people of the world. We have relationship with God as a person. The example that is given is of sunshine and the sun planet. Right? So we have sunshine. Right? Sunshine is all pervading light that we see everywhere. So this sunshine is equal to this Brahman, that it's everywhere. You can see if somebody looks at sunshine, they can feel the presence of the sun, right? So the sunshine is true, but it's not the complete description of the sun. Then there is the sun's surface, which is the Paramatma, the second layer. That there is a surface, you understand, oh, there is something more. And then there is the planet itself, right? The sun in its entirety. That's Bhagavan. So Bhagavan encompasses all the other realities. That's the ultimate understanding. He gives further examples from Brahma Samhita, another text. Ishvara Paramah Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadi Radir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. That the Supreme is the cause of all causes. People say that what is the cause of this? For example, when what's his name? J.J. Thomson and those guys, Robert Hooke's theory, right? Atomic theory came that that matter is made up of atoms, and they said that that's the lowest unit that we can understand. But then we had J.J. Thomson, Chadwick, right? Those scientists came and they said that, well, no, there are protons and neutrons and electrons. And they said that that's the fundamental reality. Then they said that, no, actually, they also have a cause. They have muons and quarks, right? Then they said that, no. Smaller than that is bosons, like Higgs boson, right? We have a big discussion argument about the position of Higgs boson and conceiving it. A Nobel Prize was awarded to Kip Thorne a few years ago, right, for his LIGO, for detection of for these waves and for postulating, and to Peter Higgs also last year about the Higgs boson. And then they said that no, actually even beyond that is strings. There is vibrating strings in the world. So the point being that you can immediately find out causes. One thing has a cause which has another cause, but if you reach at the end of all causes, the cause of all causes, that's Supreme. That's the definition of God. Who is he? He possesses the qualities of Bhagavan, right? This Bhagavan that we talked in this category of Bhagavan, the third category. Because none can excel him. His body is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. That's the quality of the form of the body of the God. What is it? It's eternal, it's full of knowledge, and it's full of bliss. And he's the primeval Lord and the cause of all causes. So that's why there's more given here. So I would highly encourage you to read on your own that why Krishna is being referred to as Bhagavan. But what is Krishna saying? Again, coming back to our immediate context. Arjuna, how are you covered with these impurities? they're not at all befitting a man like you who knows the value of life. They lead to infamy, right? You are running away from your duty, you're running away from establishing the truth, and that leads to infamy, Archana, just because of petty weakness, right? You have to perform your duty, you have to perform, you have to know who you are. So next time onwards, and hopefully I hope others can join next time, we'll look at verse number 3, and we'll see further instructions of Krishna and going into the analytical study of self-realization, right? It's a very interesting way of looking at what is the self by analysis, right? Analytical study, not just understanding that this is it, by analyzing the nature of the world. So the Bhagavad Gita second chapter is quite philosophical and very interesting in nature. So with that in mind, I'll post this recording in the group, but I hope everybody is doing well. I know things can get busy at times, but I would really like if everybody can join and we can have a interactive conversation between us. But regardless, I hope you guys enjoy this recording and you find this valuable. Thank you very much. I'll see you all next time. Hare Krishna.